Here we are.
Hey, Alex.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great, man. Thanks for having me.
Hey, listen. Thanks for coming in. When I first had this idea to do this, I was immediately thinking about the list of people I'd love to have here. And it was really interesting as I reached out to literally just a handful of agents, because obviously I want this to be a conversation with people of different backgrounds and different industries and different lifestyles. And obviously people that I know and that I respect and I want to chat with. And we've had the pleasure of chatting several times, grabbing a bite to eat, grabbing a cocktail, whatever it is. But it was funny that some people that I thought would be interested in sitting here were a little bit put off. And welcome for being here. What do you think about that? What do you make of that?
I was going to ask you the same question.
I don't know if it, my gut tells me that it's some kind of a competitive thing. I don't know, what exactly it would be, but I don't want to go over there and share my secrets. I don't want to go over there and tell them what I'm up to. I don't know. I could be completely off, but what I was surprised by was the fact that they wouldn't see, and you and I will get into it because I know you see it, the value of brand building, content, messaging, and making yourself aware to ultimately the people that you want to surround yourself with. And the people that decide to do business with you and decide to do business with me, they're choosing because they want to work with you, or they're choosing because they want to work with me. And that person also may want to work with neither one of us and work with somebody completely different, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, I'm surprised that it's lost on maybe a lot of people. I don't know, but when I invited you in, I'm like, yeah, Alex gets it. He's going to sit down. He's going to be super cool, and he's going to open up and have a real conversation with me. There's not going to be any barriers put up. And that's what I felt with those. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't, and it's funny because we were talking out there and I said, I can be completely open, right? Which I kind of expected that you would say, yeah, man, be open. I'm like, cool. Cause I'm not going to hold back, and I know you probably, offered me at this, know that I wouldn't but I just kind of had to lay the groundwork of there isn't a governor on this thing.
Yeah.
Right? Cause it's hard to, we were just talking about it. If you're going to be creative, it's hard to put a governor on being creative. Right. And there's an old saying, I think, if you can't tell the truth, it's hard to think properly. I think Jordan Peterson put it best and said, in order to think properly, I need to be willing to insult you almost, right? Which is a really kind of dramatic way of putting it, right? So I'm not going to insult you, but I'm also going to speak the truth because I don't want to dance around certain things, right? Because then it's did I say that there? Did I say that there? So I don't know. I think from that standpoint, I think a lot of people don't get that collaboration is very healthy, right? And so they get very insular about the way that they see things, or especially what you said, I'm going to share my secrets. I don't want them to mind trick me and have me give up my secrets. And frankly, the previous brokers that I was with, so we're talking about real estate here, right? And I'm sure it holds true for any industry that you're in. I thought that where I was going, there was going to be a very collaborative feel. And not that was articulated to me specifically, but it was kind of intimated that you're going to be with this person and that person, you guys will be sharing and growing, and then I was like, cool. Because that's what I wanted to be around people. It's all about the people.
Sure.
Right? It's about the people that we're around that really helps to shape and form us, right? And so I thought that that's the way it was going to be, and not that I was let down. I just it was kind of one of those, you go out into the world and you think it's going to be a certain way, and then it's not, and it's just be an adult and go, oh, okay, it's not. I made that decision based on that assumption, and it wasn't, and that's fine. I learned a lot, but that's ultimately why I came to the brokerage that I went to, because I wanted to be around those kind of people that actually it was a win-win, so I don't want to get too deep into that, but that's why I am where I am, and that's why I do what I do, and I love doing this stuff. And man, you built an amazing set here. This is incredible. everything you got set up here. This is top notch.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. And really, this was something that I wanted to build out just to kind of shoot the shit, just kind of experiment, just see what happens, and just sit here and try different things. But the more I start to see it and use it, I'm like, well, and also I was sharing it with people that were, in my inner circle. I'm like, hey, I'm doing this. And the light bulb would go on, the conversation. Again, who you're hanging out with, who you're networking with, who's in your circle tends to bring up different ideas that you didn't even think about. And so we just kind of notched it up a little bit so that, I could welcome people like you in here, and I'd feel proud of the space and really have a good conversation with people. So thanks for that. But listen, if we pull this back a little bit, tell me a little bit about how you're in Florida. Have you been in Florida the whole time? Where did you start? How are you in real estate? Kind of that story, that origin story for you.
Well, my humble beginnings.
Your humble beginnings, with all its bruises.
Yeah, a lot of bruises along the way for sure. I'm originally from New Hampshire, so I always kind of tell the story that I grew up in New Hampshire. I grew up kind of in the country. My dad was in real estate. But then he kind of chased his dream to work or to own the hunting preserve that he was a member of, and built that up into something special. But I remember being a little kid on his one of the big leather chairs, and I remember, I literally can remember that from this day, my little feet, because I'm here, little feet. But I remember, I remember watching him do real estate, right? And I always really admired my dad, and I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world, man. So he moved on and did the real estate, did the hunting preserve stuff, and I learned a lot of stuff about charm and about, giving people service, and I hung around with a lot of adults. So that kind of formed who I was at an early age, of hearing how adults communicated and so forth. So long story, a little bit longer, and I went to University of New Hampshire, got my degree in kinesiology, study human movement, which was really rock climbing and backpacking and communication stuff.
Because that was something you were really into at the moment?
I was,
and you thought you were going to pursue?
I did. I went for forestry because I always loved the woods, but I realized there wasn't a lot in that, and I had to actually take calculus, and I wasn't good at calculus. And then I found out about this program called outdoor education, which was really a branch of kinesiology, so the study of human movement, and it was a therapeutic and recreational applications of adventure activities, so outward bound kind of stuff, and rock climbing, backpacking. Sure. I got my EMT, wilderness EMT, and all that kind of stuff. So fast forward from there, I went and kind of traveled a lot, and I worked on commercial fishing boats in Maine, and that's where I went from commercial fishing boats in Maine, and then I had an Australian friend that I'd met that moved down to us to Florida and worked on private yachts, and I was getting yelled at by crusty old fishermen in Maine in the wintertime, which was another great experience because I talk to people now, and I'm not going to put a governor on this, but I just think that I don't think people really understand what hard work is. Not all in all. I think there's a lot of people out there that do, but I think there's a lot of people that don't. We call it the first world problems, right? Like my half double decaffeinated half calf with a twist of lemon doesn't have the cinnamon on top. What's wrong? And it's your perspective is wrong because you don't know what hard is, and you don't appreciate people doing things for you. So,
and you see that more through a lens of physical grit and perseverance.
Yeah. I mean, there's that, and then there's the side of developing your skills, which is one of the things that I'm very passionate about, helping real estate agents develop their skills. And I'm sure this is going to dovetail into that conversation about what it's going to be required coming into this next market, because you and I both went through the 2008 thing,
That's
know,
right.
And there's not a lot of us out there that went through that. That was the last, to me, really tough market. It, again, all comes from perspective. So if you think the last 2 years was tough because you couldn't get a property because you didn't write an escalation clause that went up high enough, really. You didn't have to really have sales skills. You just had to be able to persuade somebody that with the FOMO. But the FOMO was saying buy, you need to buy. And so you just needed to kind of ride the wave of that narrative, right? And so anyways, yeah, I came to Florida to work on private yachts.
At that point, you're how old?
I was like 24, 25.
Okay.
Ish. I did a lot of drinking back then, so it's hard to remember. But, you know, so...
I should have offered you the whiskey. I've got it.
yeah, I quit 3 years ago to...
Oh, okay.
To
well,
just, like, that was another thing of, like, what am I... You know, having decisions in alignment with where we want to go and doing hard things. Like, and for some people, I say, I quit drinking. They're like, it must be hard. And it's like, depends on what you think hard is, right? Like, if you think hard is that, then it is. Like, but if it's like...
Well, if the goal is supersedes that hard... then it's a no-brainer. It's easy to do. That goal, right.
It's easy for it's easy for people to say that, but then executing on that discipline to say that clouds my decisions, my energy, and so forth. So it's another bigger conversation, which I'm happy to have. But I guess, you know, ultimately I came down and to pursue my dream. I had $500 in my pocket. I had $18,000 in credit card debt. I didn't have a license because I'd done some stupid things. And yeah, so I'm just like, kind of, I wouldn't say rags to riches, but I had never seen, I say to people, I had never seen a Lamborghini. I'd never seen any wealth. I never saw the mega yachts that are down in Fort Lauderdale or even the ones around here in Stewart now. I never saw anything like that. So it was a good exercise I got to see the world, you know, on someone else's dime. And, you know, but I was somebody's servant. I was of service, but I was a servant.
And at that point, were you looking at those shiny objects, those Lamborghinis, or were you just listen? I'm trying to get by and see if I like this change.
I was so young, man. It was just like I'd come from the fishing boats where it was the first time I'd made $100 in a day. I remember I made like $250 in a day doing a different job on the fishing boats, and I just thought it was all the money in the world, you know. So I was just kind of pursuing having fun and seeing the world on someone else's dime, and the money that I was making was more than I'd ever had. So that was a lot of money.
Sure.
So that was a great experience because I got to actually sit, you know, this close to millionaires, and I'd never like done that, you know, and so I got to kind of learn a lot about the way they saw the world. I also got to see that they weren't something, because all I saw was Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, you know, when we had 3 channels. Remember that?
Right, exactly.
Like ABC,
Robin
NBC,
Leach.
PBS. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, from that perspective, it was good because I got to see that they were normal people that had just worked hard, figured some things out, stuck to it, didn't chase shiny objects. And so that was a good exercise in understanding, hey, you know, wealth is very attainable. You just have to work for it and work hard and work over a given period of time and stick to something. So fast forward from there, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Thanks, man. And I was like, oh, real estate. So kind of came full back circle with my dad, right? And but I was dating a woman at the time. We wanted to like raise a family. Fort Lauderdale wasn't the place to do it. She was in the Midwest. It wasn't the kind of values that we were looking for. And so we just kind of started traveling throughout Florida, came up here to Port St. Lucie, or, you know, above here to, you know, Stewart, Port St. Lucie, north of here. And, man, we loved it because the people were nice. It was really, you know, especially in Fort Lauderdale, if someone's nice to you, it's kind of like, what do you want from me? You know, not like it is up north where like people are genuinely just nice. They're a little standoffish, but they're nice, and you got to win their favor, if you will. So, yeah, so I got it. I moved up here not knowing anybody. I was talking with an agent today, and I was like, look, you know, it's very doable. You can create a sphere if you're looking at, you know, 5-10 years, and you can go about it the right way to do what you're doing, add value to their lives. And, you know, this thing on Facebook, you can build a sphere that way and influence that way.
So this is a brand new agent with no...
Couple of years.
Okay.
Couple of years in.
But no real roots here in the area.
No. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it can be done. Like, you just have to stick to it. And it's hard to know when, you know, it's that whole Twain thing, like youth is wasted on the young. Like, if you don't know that it takes time and you think you're behind because you're watching someone on Facebook and comparing yourself to that, then you're done.
That's the worst.
It's the worst. It's a great tool if you understand, you know, that, you know, electricity can light this podcast room and electricity can light a torture chamber. You know, it's just an element. It's the perception of what it is and what it can do for you as a tool. But anyways, yeah, so I worked my way up, man. Hard knocks back when, you know, we didn't have cell phones. I did the fax days. I remember when scanning came in, and then short sales came and foreclosures. And so, and then I started selling some luxury properties. I got myself with a brand that was Illustrated Properties, which is another great experience, and just kept figuring things out, man. Like we talked in the elevator, just solving problems, just continue to solve the problems. That's what it's about.
And what do you think about when you say brands? Where do you see a brand, a brokerage, the way they carry themselves, their messaging, their imagery? What does that? And obviously their leadership. I think that's probably core. Their local leadership is where you're hanging your hat, so to speak.
Yeah.
Where do you think that matters to a brand new agent? How does a brand new agent or someone who's just hasn't really gotten a foothold in their real estate business, how do you recommend that they go about choosing a brokerage or aligning themselves with a brokerage?
Such a big question. Let's start first with that. I think that a lot align with brands because they think that is going to get them business. And if it's like anything, if you believe it, it probably will happen. What can happen within anything is that if you put all of your eggs in that, then all of your eggs are there. And until you start to think it from the context, which I think you're going with this, of like, you can actually build your own brand, right? And that is, it's like Kim Kardashian type thing. Like, that's why Louis Vuitton is paying her all this money, like she's built herself a brand. She has influence. And, now she can attach that influence to anything. So I think that this world, from that perspective, I think it's going more to personal brand. That's my perspective. And that's not a notion, I think, that's that far out there if you do a little bit of research.
Well, I love that you took it there. I wasn't necessarily aiming for a segue, but I love that you talk about the fact that the brand is really you, is really Alex, it's really Eddie, because those are the people that the customer wants to do business with, regardless of whether you're wearing a green coat or you're waving a red flag or whatever the logo says on it. They're doing business with you. They trust you, and I think that in this day and age, to use a term, it's easier to create that foundation of this is the Alex brand or this is the Eddie brand, and really be able to put that forth and make those connections that are meaningful. I think before you almost had to leverage those bigger brands in order to have a leg up, have an advantage. But I think more and more that model, and boy, I can really talk about models and where I think the real estate model as a whole, and I'm sure you've got your thoughts, is going. It certainly used to be a lot more what I would call important, but I think it's less and less so. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't want to do the work, and I'm talking about you can go into that phone and learn so much about building a brand where you don't have to go and pay someone. Like, you literally can do the work. It's all right there.
Yeah. Can YouTube it for days.
Yeah. As my brother calls it, the Oracle. It knows everything. And you can learn a lot from that thing. And it can be a weapon into your, if you don't use it properly, to really kind of do yourself some damage in the head. But yeah, man, I love, I think we both have very similar thoughts on, that I think that I'll just be blunt. I think that the franchise model, I think that the brand is dying from the top down. And I think that what we were talking about with the Kardashian kind of thing is going up, right? And the people that figure out, which is what you're doing right here, right now, which, I got my podcast studio is going to be done tomorrow, and you'll be one of my first guests.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Is that, so much of the, like, look at this studio that you put on here, man. Like, what would it take to build this, 20 years ago? Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
100%.
You know what I mean? So if you want to take the time to learn, and you still got to go out and hustle, so you make the money to buy these beautiful cameras you have and all this equipment, but at the end of the day, it's a fraction of what a true production operation would really cost, even 10 years ago, frankly. So if you want to do the work, which again, back to the work thing. People are so cushy that it's like I want to be an influencer tomorrow, or I want to have people calling me. What is the lead source of people call me? Well, it's called Zillow, and you're going to pay roughly $278 per direct connect. But again, we'll get into the skills. Like, you could get all the best leads in the world, but if your skills aren't good, it's a moot point. The people are not going to call you to go and buy or sell a house. They might, you could pay for that, but if your skills aren't good enough when you actually get over in front of them, it's wasted money. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but
no, you definitely did. And I guess my next question would have been, or is going to be, if we determined and we both agree that our ability as real estate professionals to build our own brand and build our own business independent of the logo that you hitch your wagon to, so to speak, what does a current agent need? And specifically, you can speak to it, obviously, at the Haigh Group. What are your team members needing from you to help them thrive? What are most of them coming to you for?
A myriad of things. I'm about to do. I do in my phone. I'm starting to do a lot of reels and learning about hooks and the stories and the offers. And I think a lot of people get hooked on that I might be a motivator, right? Like, and I think that I don't even think people understand the difference between motivation and inspiration. And so what I mean by that is that I can inspire you, right? That I can't when the alarm goes off at 4:30 like it does for me every day, and I get out of bed. There's nobody there to inspire me to get out of bed.
Maybe the dog that needs to go outside.
Yeah, Bruiser likes his early morning walk. So I guess motivation comes from inside, inspiration comes from outside, and I think that some come because of the message that I put out there, and they think that there's some kind of, which I do see some of them receive this kind of osmotic thing from me of like, I'm telling you what it is. It's not easy, but I'm giving you the formula, and you can go and do it and deploy it into your life, and you're going to have incredible things happen if you stick with it. So some of them come for that. Some of them come for leads. Some of them come for support. I do think some come from the brand that we've built,
sure,
and the influence that we put out there, and my message that I put out there. So I think that they come for a lot of different reasons. Some come from amalgam of all of those things. Some heavier in some areas, some lighter in other areas. But yeah, I mean, it's leads, it's support, it's brand, it's hey, he's there, he's done it. Maybe I want to go and be around that person. And then sometimes, my message to them isn't always received well, right? Because I'm looking for hungry, humble, and coachable. Because I do believe that I can't teach you how to be hungry.
Yeah, that's great. Hungry, humble, and coachable. And that's something that's your mantra. That's what you say to them. It's because
what I say to myself.
It rolled right out your tongue. So,
I got that from my mentor, Carlos German.
Okay.
And I think he got it from Michael Reese as well, and I'm sure Mike got it from someone else.
Sure.
Right? Like, and I think I like simplicity. Like, I'd like to solve complex problems, but I think a lot of this stuff is relatively simple to understand. And what I mean by that is, if you're not hungry, there's nothing I can say to you to have you wake up at 4:30. There's nothing I can say to you because I'm not going to be standing over your shoulder when 5 o'clock hits, and you have an employee mindset that, 5 o'clock hit, I'm out. Or Saturday hits, and it's like, I want to do this. It's like, I can't teach you that, what we did back in the day in 2008, which I've kind of still stayed pretty resolute in my pursuit because I've built, continue to grow, not get some money and then rest on my laurels. It's like, where can I put this money to solve this problem or solve that problem? And trust me, I've spent a lot of money learning lessons that money doesn't solve all problems. So you can't teach somebody to be hungry, right? Like, you can try to pull it out of them. Why? Hey, you're doing this for your family? Like, when the alarm goes off, look at a picture of your kids. If you say you're doing it for your family, say, get up and do it. Whether they receive that and take it and implement, I can't. I'm still trying to figure that one out. But the next one is humble, meaning I was at a meeting. I was at a really great dinner down in Texas with Michael Reese and my mentor Carlos German.
This is in the EXP organization?
Correct. Mm-hmm. And those guys were part of the reason that I came, because I'd been reading a passage by Stuart Emery, and there was one paragraph in it, and I'm going to paraphrase it poorly, but surround yourself with people that ask more of you than you do. Didn't some of your best teachers, coaches, parents, etc. And so I kept reading that every day, and I was meditating, and I'm like, the universe, I believe that whole law of attraction, and these guys came across my screen, so it's serendipity or whatever you want to call it.
Put two and two together. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I do believe the universe puts things in front of you if you put it out there, and they probably might have been there the whole time, but you just weren't looking for them. Right? But when you start to say, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I'm looking for, like right now I'm looking for a listing agent to go out on appointments, so I'll put that on record.
Okay.
But so the humility, so Michael Reese said this was an Elon Musk, which everybody stops when you say that name, right? Because it's like, what did he say?
Yeah.
Right. And Elon said, assume that you might be wrong. Assume that you might not have it right. Now, he built SpaceX and Tesla on that premise of assuming. Somebody said you couldn't do electric car at scale. People said you couldn't blast a rocket into space and have the fuselage come back to Earth and have it self-land, right? And these are the brightest. This is not like, well, we don't know if we can do it. It's like, this is NASA. These are like the smartest people in the world, right?
Right.
Said you can't do it, or it's going to be too costly or whatever. Well, he said, well, you guys got a lot of things right, but there's something that you didn't get right. Now I have to go, and what did he have to do? He went and learned rocketry, doing hard work. Now, he might be a cyborg or something, so it's easier for him. But the point is, assuming that you might not have it right. So if I'm working with you and you think you know, how can I teach you anything?
I'm completely shut off. I know, you can't teach me, I'm done.
Yeah, so that's hubris. I know everything. If you're humble, it's like,
Tell me more.
Tell me more, like, right? So that humble, I think, is a very important component of the character traits that I look for. And coachable, so to be hungry, you got to go after it. You're going to work. You're going to get up early. You're going to work hard. You're going to stay late.
Have your why.
You have your why. Yeah, I mean, that's part of like that hunger. Like, what is it? Like,
why am I putting my pants on at 4:30 in the morning?
Yeah,
to get going.
Like, why am I doing it? Like, that's part of why I don't like to do this thing, but this is like who I got to become. Like the Jim Rohn, right? Success is not something we. Success is not something we chase. Success is something we attract by the person we become. So in order to change your personal reality, you got to change your personality. And I think of me, 5-10 years ago, I was a different person, right? So I was like, I got to change. So that concept of being hungry, being humble, I don't know, and then coachable is, okay, this is what I'm going to say you should do to get to where you want to go. And you actually go and do it. That means you're coachable. You're going to go and drill. You sit with your coach, whether it's golf or tennis or baseball, whatever. Coach says, got to go and drill this for the rest of the week. Then come back next week and we'll take a look at how far you've come. So that's the coachability of saying, okay, coach said to put my feet like this, move my arms like this, my shoulders like this. And now, you went and did the work, which was challenging because you maybe have had some bad habits, and you came from a place of humble. You were hungry, you went and did the work and dug it out of the dirt, and then you were coached and you were coachable. So I know that's a long explanation. I don't know where the original question came from, but that's kind of my philosophy of what the agents look for and then what I look for in them.
Exactly. And so once you feel like you have that from them, you're able to then say, come on board. Is that one of your decision makers?
It's one of them. I'm getting better with I always say it started first with I had leads and I would just it just started so rudimentary. Here's a sticky note and call this person, right? Then we got a CRM and da-da-da. So, I forget what you were asking me there, so go again.
No, it was just, I was asking if that was your determining factors.
It's the core
Those
of what
elements.
I should be hiring into. I still miss. Because one of my character flaws.
And you miss because you're looking to move a little faster?
I'm a D personality, so I like to be decisive. I like to make decisions. So that
fix it later.
Yeah, and fail forward, fail hard, fail fast type deal.
Mm-hmm.
But like also, I do believe within the context of that, and maybe it becomes this kind of confirmation bias that I want something more in somebody because I see it in them. So one of my character flaws is that I will see more in people than actually what they believe they can do themselves.
Let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a lot more difficult to find people that align with what you believe to be truths in being successful, truths in becoming your ultimate you? Do you think it's harder to find those people? Do you think there's a large segment of people that, unfortunately, and this isn't me busting balls,
Sure,
that just won't get there?
Yeah.
And it's a large segment of the population. A significant.
Well, there's an 87% NAR statistic that 87% don't
Well,
make it in the first 18 months. So
you're
we
right.
can just go with
Apply that. You can just apply that
more?
across the board.
Yeah, and I think it's Perotis's, like that's, or I always I don't know how you pronounce it, but I think that's actually a law of the universe. Like 80% of the food comes from 20% of the land.
Pareto principle.
Yeah, 80% of food comes from 20% of the land. 80% of the fish from the ocean come from certain stratospheres within the ocean. Most of the deep ocean doesn't even have any life in it.
20% of the things that you're doing are actually giving you results.
Right, and the same with people. So 87% are out, so there you're at, 13%. And then out of the 13%, you go down to Perotis's on that. Right? So then you're really at like 4 or 5%, that really want to achieve, and then you get even another Perotis's on that achieve, really high things.
So as you see those and you're aware of those, you're still motivated to surround yourself with a team, build a team. And I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. It's just knowing that, and I'm not 100% sure if that conversation or that place in your mind you were when you first walked in, I think you said it was staff related, but if it is or it isn't, I don't know. But is it worth it? Is it worth it for the end goal you think you're going to accomplish with the build out of the team?
I have to believe that.
Okay.
Or it's if there's any non-belief in my mind, then that's going to seep in. That little itch in the back of my head, and it comes. So there's difference between thoughts and feelings, right? So a thought is, I can't. A feeling is happy, sad, angry, scared. Feelings derive from thoughts. So I can see the thought. That's why I'm really about awareness. Awareness is you're not your thoughts. That's a thought that came in. I see it as a thought. Is it true? You can say yes or no, but at least you can say yes or no rather than just believe it. Right? So I have to believe that I will solve all problems. I'm capable. If I have to go back. Now I always got to be careful because it's like I'll just go do it myself, right? Like I'll just go work the 60, 80 hours. Here's the deal.
I'm guilty.
I'll still work the 60 or 80 hours. I just want to be doing this. And I want to be solving bigger problems for people at scale. And that's why I think that, things like this are so incredible. I just need to assume that I might not have it right, and just get better and better and better at finding talent and refining talent, and knowing that everybody doesn't come out of the box like an iPhone. Not everything's just ready to go. So there's definitely refinement in it, and it's finding that balance between, who I can really work with, who is hungry, humble, and coachable, and really kind of have like, are they this? So one of the things that I recently did, is say, hey, if you want to come on the team, come into role play in the morning for 2 weeks straight, and then we'll talk. Kind of laying down, like, how much do you want this? Rather than just saying, it used to be just, yeah, come on, you want to come on the team. There are the leads. Yeah. All right, sure. Chuck them leads, get them on the CRM. They'll see how they do. And I realized it was an incredible toll on the incredible staff that I have. And that's my decision. That's my responsibility. And, when I go against that, or rather don't set standards high enough. And those standards really aren't that high. So maybe I need to raise the standards even more, which we are. We just finished our team agreement again, tidied it up. Like here's the key performance indicators and here's the minimum standards. And the minimum standards make somebody, $55,000 a year. You know what I mean? And it's like, good luck, especially in the economy that's coming at us right here, going and making just in Florida, walking into $55,000 a year. I don't think that's going to be, maybe, dovetailing into a different part of the conversation, but like, man, things are going to get really interesting here.
Yeah, we can certainly save some of this for when you invite me to yours, because this conversation can go on quite in different directions and deep directions. But yes, I mean, one of the things I absolutely wanted to talk to you about was, and we can just go there now, is what your thoughts are for this coming market, and what do you think people are not prepared for, from not only a consumer perspective, a homeowner perspective, and people are looking to buy, and also from an agent perspective, and especially those who are newer that have come on to the industry in the last couple, 2-3 years, thinking, oh my goodness, I can make money, I can make six figures like that. And you could. Last couple of years, you could make six figures with just rolling out of bed at 8:30. But that's not we know it's not the case. And it's not because we want to be high and mighty and say we've got all the answers, but we've seen enough in these 20 years to know that it's not the case. And that if you haven't built a business, a real business, where you are not only prospecting on the regular, but also building your brand, which we've kind of talked about, but also then having systems in place and routines, and being good about constantly churning that wheel that is necessary every single day, because there's a lot of competition out there right now. You call it competition. I don't call it competition, but I'll just say competition in that there's a lot of numbers, right? There's a lot of agents out there. And again, 87%, right? High 80s are not going to make it. What are you telling your clients? What are you telling agents in terms of what's coming and what's happening?
Well, from a client perspective, let's start first with the buyers. Sometimes, Eddie, can sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. And what I mean by that is I do think it's a good time to buy, right? Do I think that the market has a larger chance of going down than going up? Yes. Well, now it sounds like I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. I still believe that, this kind of gets into this interest rate conversation, and like as values go down, but interest rates go up, your payment's going to be around the same. You get to write off your interest. So, one of the things that I teach in the morning role play is, why are you buying the house? Are you buying the house to flip it, or are you buying the house to live in it? And it's a very simple question.
And for how long?
Yeah. I mean, you're planning on being in it for a couple of years? Cool. If you can afford the payment now, you got a good job, hey, why not? Right? So from a buyer perspective, I think, and especially the investors, they're so much easier. The market could go down, but if your rent is going to support, your cash on cash return, like that's a no-brainer.
That's
the
exactly
investors are a lot easier to work with in that regard.
That's just math for them.
Yeah.
And it really should be for everyone else.
Right. Well, exactly. I couldn't agree more. And should's a big word. And I always say don't should all over yourself, because, at the end of the day, there's a little judgment within that word, and I say you're being judgy. What I mean by that is that if we, people buy based on status. People buy based, and then they validate with logic, right? So they buy, and that status could be, I'm going to feel good when I'm in this house and I have ownership. There's a certain amount of status there. You might be doing it because you want to show your parents, or you want to show the neighbors, or whatever. There's other status stuff in there. But, people buy based on emotion, right? And then they validate it based on logic, right? And I think that people don't, and I think as agents, this is where we come in. Not to sell somebody based on how you're going to feel. That's certainly, I think there's a lot of merit in that. But, from the logic standpoint, like we're talking about here, you can write off the interest. You're going to be in this thing for 30 years. I don't know if interest...
You need a roof over your head.
Yeah, I mean, it's just logical to me. But if you feed into the story that's out there and the narrative and you listen into Fox News, it's like, don't do this because this. And it's like, well, why are you buying the house? Let's just come back to that. You're going to go down this rabbit hole of just indecision based on, clickbait narrative to make you scared to have you watch more news. Mm-hmm. That's that whole thing. So from a selling standpoint, and we talk about this a lot, is like, what is the dominant buying motive? So that's why you also want to, as an agent, ask these people, like, what is the motive? Like, is it to flip the house or is it to live in the house? What is your dominant buying motive? You want a larger house because you got kids coming in. You want a backyard. You don't want to live in a condo because you want to have a dog. Like, that's important. If you can afford it, cool. So those would be like examples of dominant buying motives. Like a dominant selling motive would be, hey, we want to sell this house to be closer to our family. We want to sell this house for whatever reason. Like, it's got to be, what is the motive, right? And so if the motive isn't going to change, but based on what I'm seeing, the market has a larger chance. I can't tell you, I always say this, I can't tell you the sun's going to rise tomorrow, but I can tell you there's a pretty good chance. So within the context of that, you probably should sell now because that motive isn't going to change. And if the chances are that the market's going to drop more, you should price it properly. I'm going to do the marketing 100%. You price it. We price this thing together to help you move it. And that's it. You know what I mean? Your motive is there. Is anything going to change with that? Well, we don't want to give it away. Well, what does give it away mean to you? There's that whole conversation. It's indecision, based on fear. So let's break it down to the logic should to help you make a good decision. Your motive still hasn't changed, right? Okay. Your motive hasn't changed, then let's price this thing properly so we can get you up to your family.
Yeah, and I agree that the motives are incredibly important. I think that there was, for those last 2-3 years, merely the last 2 years, where things were a little bit, quote unquote, nutty, there was a lot more speculating. There was a lot more, I'm going to flip. There's a lot more, I'm going to make some money on it. But I think as more people locked in their low interest rates at 2.8, 2.5 even, and even into threes, they're like, well, you know what? I'm just going to sit still. I'll improve this house, or I'll just stay here. I think there's less movement on people that just want to move. I think if you've got to move, and there's always going to be a segment of the population that absolutely has to move for whatever reason, job change, life changes, all these kinds of things. Yeah. But I also say that this is Florida, and take this whole market dynamic out, and at the end of the day, it's still Florida, and it's still a place where traditionally people have come to move because it's been, comparatively speaking, more affordable. Now, you can't use that word as much as you used to because it's a little bit more on par with a lot more markets in our country, but it's still sunny and warm and a nice place to wake up and open your eyes to. So I think that isn't going to change. So, and I think that's part of the reason why our market's been a little bit more, our local market here in Florida has been a little bit more insulated from the extreme change. I think to use one of your analogies is the news, and the fact that they're obviously wanting to paint a very emotional picture of what's happening, this tragic thing. Everything is falling, the sky is falling, all that, right? But the answer is you've got to lock arms with a competent local professional so that you can get real data on what's happening in the market that you're trying to either step into or step out of, right? Yeah. And that's what it comes to. So let's talk about video. You are one of the people that I obviously love to follow. I get your newsletter, and when I see you pop up on the video and everything, and that's been one of my passions. Obviously, we're sitting here in the podcast studio, and not only is it a podcast, of course, for audio, but we're creating content for people to see. And I've seen it pay dividends for not only for myself, but for the clients that I serve, coaching clients in different industries. What is your thought on video? Obviously, I know you subscribe to it. You believe in it. But what is your thought process on why you implement video in your marketing efforts? And what are you doing now besides what I've seen? And what are you planning to do with it moving forward?
I'm going to throw out a big word here.
Yeah.
It's going to make me sound smart. I'm really not smart, but I can remember things. So no, I'm trying to be humble. But the concept. I think it's important to understand why video is so powerful. And I got this from BombBomb. So anybody who doesn't have BombBomb, it's a very, very useful tool, right? Like to make video as easy as you possibly could make it. People figure out ways to not do it, but it doesn't mean that it's not as easy as you possibly could do it. And so the word that they threw out, which is a social measurement of interaction between humans, and it's called propinquity. And propinquity is, they did studies on this, that when you're having a conversation with somebody, especially someone that you don't know, right? And they did studies with putting people together and had them ask questions back and forth that they didn't know each other, right?
In person?
In person, right? And this close.
Mm-hmm.
And what they found was, so the questions went back and forth, right? Took the people out and they asked them 3 questions. The first question was, how much of what they actually said resonated with you on an emotional level? And it's something crazy, man, like 7%. Mm-hmm. Like nobody gives a hoot what you say. That's why you want to be direct and you want to use language and be articulate and all that, because that does help. The second question was, how much did their voice inflection and tone and cadence and timing, how much did that affect your relationship with them? And it was another like 13% or something like that. I don't know what the exact stat is. But very small for those two. So you'd think, right, like the tone and actually what they said, like, oh, I'm having a conversation with somebody, so I'm like really listening to what they say.
The animation
and how
behind it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, to that next point, the animation, because the cadence is actually the tone or the verbal cues that are coming out, right? 80% of that interaction measurement of what that person experienced with that other person was the facial expressions and the eye contact that actually happened between them, right? And why is that? Well, I think it's because when we were in the jungle, right, before there was language, what was this? Right? It's happy.
Right.
Sad, right?
Confused, angry,
suspicious. Yeah, there's more that actually happens with our facial expressions than really that are universal besides language. Now, when you yell, there's a cadence to that, right? But that facial expression, so that's why video is so impactful on people, right? So I think that is something that's innately part of us. And that's why video is so important.
Taps into the primal.
It does. Everybody goes, oh, I like watching the face move and the expressions, and
there's no misunderstanding that.
There isn't.
I don't have to be taught to understand what you just did and what that means.
Right, and that's very powerful. If you have a collective that communicates simply by, you know what this means. Hey man,
right.
We know what that means. And so I think it transcends language. I think it transcends, people say I have a radio voice or whatever, but like you can still, there's plenty, look at Gary Vee. He's a great example, right? Like he's as he will say, not a great looking guy. He's got kind of a squeaky voice. You know what I mean? Like,
he's a terrible reader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like he just got outside himself and just figured this stuff out and started doing video back in 2006 with Wine Library, which is a whole different story. But yeah, so I think that that's why video is so important, because it helps you connect with an audience like no other medium, right? And so if you're in sales or you're in, let's just be honest, like, life is influence. And it's not to influence people to do something that's nefarious.
It's not an arm twisting.
No.
No.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's not an arm twisting. There's all kinds of tactics to do that kind of stuff. verbally and intimidation and all that. But I guess the point is that if you really have, and I like to use this word too, magnanimous, like to be of great mind and great heart, and to not be petty, and you have the best interest of people in mind, and meaning that you want to help them grow or solve something or aspire to something else, and video is the best medium to communicate through. There you go. There's the logic, right? Like, there's why you should do video.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's just the way I see it.
So how are you using it now? How is it specifically tactically used in your business right now, and what are you trying to implement here?
I'll give you a great example.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a great example, man. So I've been using, so everybody out there, I use Viral because I tried, when I started doing video, which was probably like 2014 or 15. It's kind of when I started watching some Tom Ferry, and he's like, video,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to do it. And I was like, all right, I got to do it. And so, and my dad was always up on stage and stuff. So I didn't, I did some acting when I was younger. So I didn't have as much like fear around it. Right. And I like doing creative stuff, and I like doing new stuff, so it's like, cool. So I got this guy got out of college, and we did some stuff, and we tried sending it through BombBomb. We realized, that BombBomb has some issues with the API and stuff like that. It recognizes it as spam and blah, blah. So I did some cool stuff, and but I didn't have as much frequency with it. And I was like, dude, I want this to come out every 2 weeks. All of a sudden, Viral comes across my team, VYRAL. I don't even have a code for that, so you guys can use that, but tell them I sent you. But so I'm using Viral, and it's basically like I show up every 2 weeks at a certain time. I sit down, and I've gotten much better at it. It's a half an hour session, but I can knock out 2 videos in there. I can do my market reports and so forth. So that's what I'm using as a core. I've started a YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. It's a Haigh today. I'm doing pros and cons and that kind of stuff. Treasure Coast, learning more about that. We got to get our thumbnails squared away. And it's learning. Like, this stuff takes time.
Absolutely.
Keep learning, keep consuming, keep figuring out how to get better, and then you can start to get a little more surgical with it, right? So I send BombBomb videos and that kind of thing too, because they're very impactful. People go, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did." I did a screen share the other day of a CMA for somebody to do a price change, and he was like, "That's amazing." He's like, "It was so." Like, I couldn't have sent him that report and had him look at it and really understand what it was.
You walked them through it.
I walked him through it. My cursor's going here, here's here, this is what here, da-da-da-da. Very powerful. $25,000 price change, which was good for him. So I think that the medium, I use it in different ways. And I think, I know moving forward, I'm really dedicated to that, right? So I'm going all in, which you got a little bit of a jump start on me here, but I'm going all in on it. And I got to put my ego aside. I got to put capital over ego and go, hey, there is going to be capital I'm going to deploy into this, because it's not always a quick thing. Now, I'll leave you on this last bit of something that worked for me. And this is what people don't get. They want, half double decaffeinated, half calf with a twist of lemon right now. Why was it 30 seconds late? It's like you've disenfranchised yourself for the hard work of what you'll have actually in return for doing something over a given period of time. We know with YouTube, it's consistency, right?
Absolutely.
And all this stuff is consistency.
And is this something that you're not only what you're describing to me now, is that something you're just doing specifically, or are you trying to make this?
I'm trying to get the
agents to get on board.
Yeah,
because there's definitely that whole, I don't like myself on camera, I don't like my voice. That they have to overcome that with a lot of people. But are you trying to push it in that direction for them too? Or are you trying to make it a company-wide situation?
I try
lead
not
by example?
to. Well, yes. To the last part, I don't believe that you can push.
No.
I believe that you offer and enroll, and people can either receive the offer or they can throw it away. I can't get anybody to do anything. I can enroll them in the value and the effects, but I can't get people to do anything. I get on the role play. How do I get them to get off the fence? It's like, you ask them really good questions and help them come to the conclusion themselves. Well, how do I do that? You come to more role play. So, great story, right? So I literally got a call yesterday. A text came through and it said, "Hey, Alex, this is a guy that I sent a letter to over 10 years ago that I built a relationship with. I listed his house. We never sold his house. I think I rented his house once down in Hope Sound. But we've stayed in touch, and I still will follow up with him and here or there, how you doing, da-da-da. Just, light follow-up. I might not talk to him for 6 months, a year.
He gets your emails?
Gets my emails.
Right.
He texts me and says, I have this friend who's looking to sell some properties on North Hutchinson Island. And he asked me who somebody was good in the area, and I let him know about you. Now, we've talked before. He's like, I get all your video. Mm-hmm. I watch it. I'm informing, value, just touches. Now, we're talking 10 years, right? So, I don't know, since 2014 when he probably started getting them. So that's 6 years of videos, right? And probably, I don't know, maybe 10 conversations, mm-hmm. varying lengths. And
but enough to stay top of mind.
Yeah. And when that time came, the guy said, I want somebody great in that area. Gives me a call. Boom. Sends me the text. Call the guy. Guy calls me. I'm listing. I just sent the listing agreements out. That's part of why I was late. 5 houses for $2 million a piece, with 12 more slated to be CO'd in the next 6 months.
So these are all new builds. None of it's out of the ground yet.
Yeah, one CO in the next
one
month.
Is okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's all like planned urban development. It's all like infrastructure and everything, and they've got 5. One that's coming out of CO within the next month, and then 2 more within the next 2 months. And he's like, you do these, da 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 da. So you're talking just right there, man. 10 million in volume. Now maybe they'll sell for 1.8 or 1.9. I don't know.
Yeah, for simple math.
The point is, that's all from my relationship too, but then the nurturing with the video.
Yeah. Yeah, another great strategy that's a great one. And another one I shared recently, I had the privilege of speaking in Vegas a couple of weeks ago, and there's one example that I shared, and it has to do, and I know you know the concept, the evergreen video, mm-hmm. right? The video that's out there that spotlights a community, an area, mm-hmm. a price point, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. That people will find years and years later. So I have a video out there for a property out on the island as well, actually, out in Watersong. Mm-hmm. I did it 2.5 years ago, and it was for a listing. But because of the, these are some of the strategies that we're also teaching, is the proper keywords and descriptors and everything like that, people are finding it. So you'd think, who's really going to find this little community, this enclave of homes, that's searching for this type of property in the area? They do. And so we're closing on a property for $3.5 million. How did they find me? And later on in the relationship, it's like, I can't remember how we found you, Eddie. But initially, when she reached out to me, the wife, she goes, yeah, I was searching and I found your video on YouTube. You're telling me that little video, and that was the comment that I was sharing. That little video has netted a significant amount of commission for mm-hmm. a video that probably cost me $400 to produce, mm-hmm. right? And I did it 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So to have this library of content, that's the other strategy that I love sharing, is building out that library of content, right? Yeah. Because when people are searching for something, they're more likely to find you if you've built out a nice library of, look at this guy, he's just giving value, he's talking about the community, he looks like he knows what he's talking about, I'm seeing his face, I'm seeing his emotions, the things that you're sharing with me right now. Yeah. I connect with this guy, let me give him a call. That is incredibly powerful for me in terms of trying to further the cause of video, which is why I was curious to see, what your plans were for more video. But that's how we use it, and I love to see that continue. So I'm glad that you came in and we were able to chat about the video and chat about all these other things, and of course your story. Is there anything else that you'd love to share with us, leave with us? Anything you're working on? Anything that you're, I know you're working on your studio. Obviously when we're done, I'd love for you to poke around and look to see, and when you're built out yours, I'd like to go see, because this is going to be an ever-changing thing. This is not going to be I'm done. When we look at this video, I'm like, oh, I can't believe I used that, or I had that 6 months ago or a year ago. What is it that you're excited about doing in these next 6 months to a year, especially with the market the way it is? Are you seeing that as an opportunity to double down on certain things?
Yeah.
Reinvest in certain things? That was one of the things that I shared with newer agents. I said that that money you made over the last couple of years, I hope you've put some of it away.
Yeah.
Because either you're going to need it to weather the storm, or hopefully you've doubled down on yourself because you believe in this industry and you're going to make the investment in yourself. What are your plans?
Yeah, look, we did last week kind of, when the money's flying around, you're not paying attention as much, which, is a bad business, but it happens. We trimmed about $2,000 from just frill stuff, man. Like, what is that? What is that? What is that? You're not paying attention when, tens of thousands of dollars is flying around. So, but I'm excited. I genuinely am excited because this was something that I wanted to do, and I was so busy over the last couple of years. And that's where the team comes in, because the leverage of having, getting agents to go out and get listing appointments and work with, I haven't worked with buyers in a while, but that frees me up to do more of this creative stuff. I'm more than committed to that, because this slowdown has really made me think, because there was some leads, because we do a lot of online stuff,
right?
And the online leads, the great ones come and they go, and I'm just like, I'm tired of having something that's great and then it's not. So I know, to your point with the evergreen content, this is something that will live on forever and will compound. Here's the deal. It actually, you pay that money or whatever, that time to do it, and then it goes online, and we're getting the keywords, squared away, and, figuring more of that out. But like, now this thing actually grows. So now you have a lead source that grows. And so, so I'm very, very committed to this. It's the way I'm going to go. And I'm still out, I'm still going on listing appointments here or there, but I thought I was out. There's a couple times I thought I was out, and that's okay.
Sucked back in.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, man, like, I still can always just go back and go, you could be working on fishing boats in Maine, man, getting yelled at by crusty old
guys.
You know what I mean? Like, that's hard.
Yeah.
So this is just maybe something I don't want to do. I don't loathe it, but it's just not what I really ultimately want to be doing. But that doesn't mean I despise it, So.
Well, let's share that for the next conversation. Then.
Yeah.
Where are you going to go to next outside of outside of real estate?
Yeah. I'm really looking at a lot of stuff of building some other businesses within the business. I'm looking at some pretty big things that I'll talk to you about. I got actually a mastermind here at 5:00 that I'm going to. Dude, I'm looking to solve bigger problems. And I'm looking for exactly what you brought up. I do believe in collaboration, and I believe that the models that our people are compensated for helping other people, not a franchise owner winning and you are on the transaction treadmill for the rest of your life.
Correct.
I just think that the world is waking up to that is Yellow Cab, and that is Blockbuster, that is that typical franchise model. So I'm looking at something right now that solves a lot of the problems, and not problem. I mean, the challenges. The challenges.
Listen, this is a big beast to beat down. You talk about a realtor association, a way of doing business for many, many years.
Yeah.
That's not going to topple quickly.
Yeah, I'm talking about the building of the team.
The building of the team.
So
okay.
there's a lot of things that, it's kind of like the Donald Rumsfeld thing. Like, there's the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns. And you don't know some of the things. You know some of the things, and then you think you got them solved. And then there's people involved, so that can throw monkey wrenches into things. But there's some interesting things that are happening in our industry that are bigger than that solve big problems at scale, right? And when you can solve big problems at scale, you find a Facebook, you find an Uber, you find, someplace where there's a blue ocean where you literally didn't think there was blue ocean. And so I'm looking at something that's going to solve a lot of things that are going to free me up to do more of this kind of thing, right?
Take you out of the transaction.
I know I could, I know that I can solve it. It just might take me longer. So I want to be able to go further, faster. I want to be able to do what I want to do to create more influence, to help people grow at scale and get my mind and my people that are my staff that have decided to enroll with me in this journey, and I'm very blessed to have incredible people that we can go solve some other problems, challenges, if you will, at scale to free us up to create more influence, to empower more people, to create more collaboration, and have a collective ownership of this market, right? I believe in that. And I think that Uber and these others really showed that for me, that's not a great example because Uber drivers don't get paid a lot, but, that they didn't have to go out and pay $500,000 for a yellow cab medallion,
right.
know, so they can slap a locator in their car and do a background check and go and make a decent living. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't do that before. You were a gypsy cab and you were going to get shut down. So I think we're about to go through a lot of disruption. I think that within disruption, there's incredible opportunity. And I think that the models that support the individual agents' development from a financial side and also as a personal development side, from that bottom down rather than top down,
will fare better.
I think that they're going to fare better. I think that's the way this thing's going, because this is a great example, right? Like, you couldn't have done that. It would have to be ABC or whatever, or you would have had $500,000 to bring in a production crew. And, this empowers the individual to go out and do this on their own. And I'm all about that, man. I think that's the greatest form of capitalism that you possibly could have, that the individual has so much opportunity. And 20 years ago, you certainly had opportunity in this country, but you didn't have this kind of opportunity to reach this many people. And I think that the models that support that are going to be the models that grow. And I think the ones that are at the top down with somebody at the top, with a franchise, I just honestly think that season is waning.
That season is coming to an end.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. And one of the reasons why I also wanted to invite you here is because we're at a similar time in our life and our career, and we've amassed this level of experience and vision and capital of all kinds, of all forms, in terms of not just human capital, but obviously investment capital, and to be able to deploy these assets and our experiences to really solve bigger problems, come up with better solutions. And maybe as this time marries with a potential decrease in our market, I think that marriage, that combination right there will open up a lot of opportunity for people who think this way.
I agree.
Right? Thanks for coming, brother.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Enjoyed it, bro.
Thanks.